Imagine you are a young woman. You are 18 years old, living in New Jersey in the 1920s. The Great War, World War I, has just ended, and the world is a party filled with bright lights. And you are one of the luckiest people. You have your dream job. Your job is to paint with light. After a day's work, you step out of the factory in your best flapper dress. As night falls, you begin to glow. Your fingernails glow a ghostly green. You smile, your teeth sparkle in the dark. Your curls sprinkle with fairy dust. You're a ghost girl, and you're the life of every dance floor. Guys are smitten. They say you look like an angel. You're working with a magical material, a miracle of modern science. Radium radio. This is not a fairy tale. This is a true horror story. Because that fairy light you paint on your nails and lick with your lips every day is silently killing you. It's eating away at your jawbone, hollowing out your spine. You are not an angel. You are a dead man walking. This is the tragedy of the corporate family and its sacrificed daughters. This is the story of the Radium Girls. In the early 20th century, the world was obsessed with a single word: radium. Discovered by the legendary Marie Curie, the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, radium is a miracle. It is a self-luminous element that radiates seemingly endless energy. It is eternal sunlight in a bottle. And because it was new, expensive, and mysterious, people didn't think it was dangerous. They thought it was good for health. Indeed, it was a fashionable medicine. You could buy radium water revigator, which was advertised as a curl. You could buy radium chocolate, radium cosmetics, even radium underwear. Its energy was believed to invigorate the body. Radium was the future. Health, wealth, and in Orange, New Jersey, one company has built its empire on it. U.S. Radium Corporation. To the young working-class girls of the area, Italian, Irish, German immigrants, the Radium Corporation was not a factory. It was a family. Great bosses like Sir Arthur Roeder aren't bosses. They're fathers, uncles. They speak softly. They remember your name. They offer a job unlike any other. You don't have to work in dirty, noisy garment factories. You don't have to work in toxic, dusty ceramic factories. A terrible irony. No, you were chosen to be an artist. Your work takes place in a quiet, bright, women-only studio. You sit with a dozen other girls, all young, cheerful, and chatty. Your salary is 3 times the average factory worker's. You are a radium girl, a status to be proud of. Your mission: draw. During World War I, the military needed clocks and aircraft dashboards that could glow in the dark. The Radium Corporation invented the perfect paint, Undark, a mixture of glue, water, and radium powder. Your work is meticulous. You are given a tray of 24 clock faces and a jar of yellow-gray Undark powder. You're given a small brush made from camel hair. You must draw tiny numbers, some only a millimeter wide. And to do that, the workshop managers, older women, taught you a technique, a trade secret. After a few strokes, the tip of the brush will become flattened. To keep it pointed, you need to do a simple movement. You put the pen to your lips. You lick it. Use your lips and tongue to smooth out the tips of the feathers. You dip it in radium paint. You draw the number, and you repeat. Hundreds of times a day. What does it taste like? The new girls asked. The old girls laughed. It doesn't taste like anything, they said. Just a little sparkle on your tongue. Is it safe? The masters, the fathers of the family, laughed and patted them on the back. It is absolutely safe, my daughters. This substance is more valuable than gold. You will not waste it if it harms you. It may even make your cheeks rosy, they lie. This is secret crime betrayal. While the girls were licking the radium, on another floor of the factory, chemists and physicists men were handling raw radium powder. They knew exactly what radium was, knew it could burn skin, destroy cells. These male scientists wear-lead cloak thick. They wear-lead safety glasses. They usually clamp long enough to hold test tubes. When the girls asked why the scientists were protected, the bosses lied again. Oh, scientists are very sensitive. They handle large quantities. You only use a little paint. It's completely harmless. The girls, with absolute faith in their clan, believed them. They don't just lick pens. They turn themselves into living works of art. They were ghost girls. They were young women of the jazz age. They wanted to shine. After work, they wouldn't wash it off. Radium powder was in their hair and on their clothes. When they hit the dance floors in Newark, under the dim lights, they'd be the only ones glowing. They'd be the center of attention. They'd use that same undark polish on their nails. The funniest joke, when they want to impress their boyfriend, they will go into a dark room, smile, and reveal a set of glowing teeth. They don't know that every little kiss on the brush is a deadly dose of poison. They do not know that they are putting a substance with a half-life of 1,600 years into their bodies. They do not know that radium, chemically, is very similar to calcium, and their bodies, in their innocence, made a terrible mistake. When radium was ingested, the body thought it was calcium, the stuff that builds bones. So it took the radium and sent it straight. And there, in the bone marrow, in the jaw, in the spine, in the thigh bone, the eternal sunlight begins its work. It is not invigorating. I explode. Silently at the cellular level, radium begins to fire alpha particles. It's like having 1,000,000,000,000 microscopic machine guns inside your bones, bombarding your marrow, killing your blood cells, and hollowing out your skeleton from the inside. But it's a slow process. It takes years. During those years, the girls were happy, they made money, they bought the best dresses, they got married. They were the pride of the American radium family. And then, in 1922, the first girl got a toothache. Molly Maggia, one of the first female star artists, went to the dentist because of an aching molar. The dentist pulled the tooth. A few weeks later, Molly returned. Extraction site had not healed. It was still bleeding, and ... The tooth next to it was hurting too. The dentist pulled that one out too. A few weeks later, Molly returned. The wound wasn't just healing, it was rotting. Her entire jaw was swollen and festering. When the dentist probed with forceps, he was horrified. Molly's jawbone was no longer solid. It was soft as paper pulp. And then, in one of the most terrifying medical horror moments, when the dentist tried to lift a loose tooth, he failed to extract it. He pulled out ... an entire jawboners. The nightmare has begun. What the New Jersey dentist pulled from Molly Maggia's mouth wasn't bone. It was necrosis, a mass of dead, spongy, crumbling tissue. Molly's nightmare was only just beginning. Her entire lower jaw, then her upper jaw, began to disintegrate. Her mouth, where she had licked the glowing quills, came an open wound, a black hole of decay that the doctors could not stitch up. And then, the first sinful secret medical lies happened. In 1922, at the age of 24, Molly Maggia died in excruciating pain. She died from a large ulcer in her throat that ruptured her carotid artery, causing her to suffocate in her own blood. Her family demanded an explanation. The company doctor, a man who worked for the radium family, signed the death certificate. The cause of death, he wrote one word: syphilis, syphilis. It was a cruel and calculated lie, stroke of legal genius. First, it blames the victim herself, the girl's moral decadence. Second, it created a terrible shame, silencing Molly's family and the other girls. Who would dare stand up and say, "My daughter doesn't have a venereal disease"? Third, it completely distracts from the factory. The American radium family sacrificed its first child and blamed it on herself. They thought the incident was buried with Molly. They were wrong. A few months later, another artist, Irene Rudolph, died. The symptoms were identical: gangrene of the jaw. Then Grace Fryer, one of the most famous girls, began to have pain. Not in her jaw, but in her back. Grace went to see a doctor. She thought she had arthritis. The doctor took an X-ray of her spine. When he saw the film, he was horrified. Grace Fryer's spine was not human. It was hollow. It looked honeycomb, spongy and crumbly, as if something inside had blasted it to pieces. And that's exactly what happened. Radium, which her body mistook for calcium, had built up in her bones. And over the years it had been firing alpha particles, a relentless nuclear bombardment disintegrating her skeleton from the inside. Now, the girls were starting to panic. This wasn't syphilis. This was a plague that only affected people who painted clock faces. A group of girls led by Grace Fryer, Catherine Schaub, and Quinta MacDonald, whose teeth were now falling out and whose leg bones had begun to break on their own, went to see their clan. They went to see their father, the company's president, Sir Arthur Roeder. What did they bring? They brought lost teeth in little boxes. They brought x-rays of their hollowed-out spines. They brought fear. They begged for help. And what did Sir Arthur Roeder do? He lied. He patted them on the back, calling them my daughters, and said that their illnesses could not possibly be related to this harmless work. To prove it, he announced that he would hire a top independent expert from Harvard to investigate. They hired an expert, Cecil Drinker, and he investigated. The official report Drinker issued, the one the company released to the press, and the girls stated that, after thorough testing, the undark paint was absolutely safe and had no connection to the illnesses of the female workers. The girls were crushed. Their clans said they were crazy. But this is the second sinful secret, the conscious cover-up. Cecil Drinker, the Harvard expert, secretly wrote a report Monday, private report for the sole use of the Board of Directors of the United States Radium Corporation. What is the content of that secret report? It was a death sentence. Drinker wrote. The poison was killing them. Everything in the factory was contaminated. The workbenches, the doorknobs, the air emitted dangerous levels of radiation. The licking of brushes had to stop immediately. The United States Radium Corporation received this secret report. They read it. They knew exactly that they were killing their female workers. And what did they do? They didn't just ignore it. They actively suppressed it. They threatened to sue Drinker if he published the truth. And with the girls, they continued to lie. They continued to hire new 15-year-old girls, continued to teach them the lick, dip, draw technique. The family doesn't just abandon its sick children. It's actively creating new victims, all for the profit of glowing watches. Betrayal is now complete. Grace Fryer refused to accept it. Her body was falling apart. She had to wear a steel brace to keep her spine from collapsing. She knew she was dying, and she knew she had been lied to. She decided to fight. She went to find a lawyer. But no lawyer in New Jersey would take the case. Why? They were afraid of the Radium Corporation, the industrial giant, and they, believed the syphilis lie. They didn't want to tarnish their reputation with a bunch of hypocritical mill workers. Grace Fryer is dead. 2 years for 2 years, while her body continued to rot, she knocked on the doors of law offices. Finally, in 1927, a young lawyer named Raymond Berry agreed to take the case. But he said, "We have a problem, the lie about syphilis. That lie has poisoned the jury. We need irrefutable evidence. We need to prove that Molly McGee died of radium, not of STDs. But Molly has been dead for 5 years. How to prove it? They decided to do something unthinkable, something horrifying, something that violated every taboo. They will excavation, Molly. One cold night in 1927, a small group including Lawyer Barry, a pathologist, and Molly's younger brother arrived at the cemetery. By dim lantern light, they began digging. The sound of a shovel hitting hard ground, the sound of wind whistling. They dug down and found a simple wooden coffin. With the family's permission, they used a crowbar to pry open the lid. When the coffin lid opened, all the men stepped back, some holding their breath, some making the sign of the cross. They don't need lanterns anymore. From inside the coffin, a green, ghostly light was radiating, illuminating their terrified faces. Even after 5 years of being buried, Molly McGee's body, or rather, what remained of her skeleton, was still glow, and the dark radium had clung to her bones, and it was still shooting out its demonic energy. The pathologist, trembling, inserted an unexposed X-ray film into the coffin, above the body. The film was instantly burned by the radiation. They had their proof. They had their demon. The syphilis lie is dead. The ghost daughters now have a weapon to fight against the family that betrayed them. The battle of the Radium Girls, has officially begun. The story of Molly McGee's glowing grave exploded onto the front pages. New York tabloids, such as New York World, grabbed it. A body after 5 years of burial still emits an evil light. The syphilis lie dissolved in that green light. Public initially skeptical, now turned to horror. This was not a medical tragedy. This was a gothic horror story. The U.S. Radium family, the U.S. Radium Corporation, can no longer hide behind moral slander. They are facing a PR storm, and how did Father Arthur Roeder react? Did he confess? Did he beg forgiveness from his dying daughters? No, he did what every powerful corporation does. He counterattacked. The U.S. Radium Corporation mobilized an army of lawyers and paid experts. They publicly attacked lawyer Raymond Berry, calling him an ambulance chaser who was taking advantage of vulnerable women. They hired a new doctor, Dr. Frederick Flynn, who quickly issued a new expert report declaring that the radium was harmless. And the girls had only ordinary gingivitis. And most importantly, they started a brutal legal battle. Grace Fryer, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, two other girls whom the press now called the Radium Girls, finally got his day in court in 1928. But when they entered the courtroom, it was not a scene of justice. It was a scene of devastation, or the Walking Dead. Grace Fryer, who was once a lively girl, now cannot sit up straight. Her spine has been hollowed out by radium, and she must wear a steel back brace. A heavy back brace was needed just to keep her body from breaking in two. She had to be helped in by two people. Catherine Schaub, another female artist, lost most of her jaw. All 5 women had lost their teeth and hair. Their bones were so brittle that a strong hug could break their ribs. They were severely anemic, their skin was ashen, and they were in indescribable pain. They are living proof, or rather, dying proof of the crimes of the Radium family. And the Radium Corporation lawyers, in their expensive suits, saw these dying women, and they formulated their legal strategy. Corporate lawyers don't argue about science. They don't argue about disease. They argued about ... procedure. They stood before the court and asked for a postponement of the hearing. Judge, they said, we need more time to prepare. We need more time to review the evidence. They asked for a 3-month delay, and another 3 months. Why? They are playing the cruelest game. They look at the women disintegrating before them, and they know exactly what they are doing. They are wrestling. They know that girls don't have 3 months. They might not even have 3 weeks. The company's strategy is simple. Delay the lawsuit until all the plaintiffs ... are dead. A dead man cannot testify. A dead man cannot win a lawsuit. This is the ultimate betrayal of the family. The corporate father has not only poisoned his children, now he is manipulating the legal clock, waiting for them to die in agony so he can keep his money. Attorney Raymond Berry fought like a lion. He told the judge, "Your Honor, this is not justice. This is a death sentence. My client is dying. They are using delay as a murder weapon."
Oh.
The press went crazy. They called Radium's lawyers murderers. The public pressure became unbearable. He ordered the trial to continue, but it was too late. Grace Fryer, on the day she was scheduled to testify, could not get out of bed. She was too weak. Her spine had collapsed. She was dying. The lawsuit appears to have failed. Grace Fryer failed to show up for court. And so Raymond Berry made an extraordinary request. If his client couldn't come to court, then the court must come to her one afternoon in April 1928. A strange and tragic scene unfolded. The judge, the firm's lawyers, the defense attorneys, and a court clerk, all gathered in the small, cramped living room of Grace Fryer's house. They set up a makeshift bed. Grace Fryer was carried out. She no longer resembled a person. She was a skeleton wrapped in skin. They placed a Bible on the steel brace on her chest. And there, in her living room, surrounded by her killers, Grace Fryer raised her thin, shaking hand and swore an oath. She spoke very weakly. Her voice was only a whisper. She recounted everything: the work, the pride, the lick, dip, draw technique, the lies of her bosses, the illness, and the betrayal. Radium's lawyers tried to object. They tried to nitpick her on every detail, but they lost. That image of a dying young woman, betrayed by her own body, still fighting for the truth, was one no jury could ignore. The newspapers called it a deathbed trial. Faced with this PR disaster, faced with the image of a wealthy company torturing a dying woman in her own bed, the U.S. Radium Corporation finally ... backed down. They don't want Grace Fryer to die on her desk. They suggested settled. They immediately offered each girl $10,000, a huge sum at the time, plus a $600 annual allowance for the rest of their lives, and most importantly, they would pay all past and future medical expenses. It was a victory. The press hailed it as a great victory for working people, a David and Goliath story. But is that justice? Along with a $10,000 check, the Radium clan gave the girls one last piece of paper to sign. A deal. The settlement included a clause. The girls would receive money, but in return, they would never reveal any further details of the case. They were not allowed to speak to the press again. The Radium family does not pay out of remorse. They do not pay out of justice. They err by silence, if his dying children. He paid these girls to die quietly so the scandal could pass, so they could continue their business. Grace Fryer and others signed. They needed money to pay medical bills and leave something for their families. They fought hard. They won. But the race with death was not won. Catherine Schaub died within a year, so did Quinta MacDonald. Grace Fryer, a tenacious fighter who wore a steel back brace, held on for a few more years. Before passing away in 1933, they are all dead. And the American Radium Corporation. They simply changed their name. They moved operations to another state. And they continued, hiring new girls who knew nothing about history to paint the dials. The Battle of New Jersey was over. But the war and the tragedy of the Radium Girls were far from over.